Beast Wars Season 2, Episode 8, Bad Spark. I gotta admit, I kind of love this episode. Not only did we get to see a new, like a really crazy new Predacon, but this is a Predacon that's technically based on the, I guess I could say genome, or just the spark, I'll say, of an actual Decepticon. And that was such a cool idea. Technically, in this episode, we also get to see the old form of Optimus as well, which I thought was pretty sweet, even though it's like a cool little black and white segment. But one of the stasis pods that is recognized in this episode as having crashed during the whole invasion thing, it's in this jungle area, and I want to say it was Cheetor that finds it. And so he finds this big stasis pod. It's like bigger than any of the other ones he's seen. And he's like, man, this thing is really weird, and it's got like a crazy looking X on it. And this thing turns out to be like the craziest experiment, and not only like the craziest, one of the craziest experiments ever done by the Maximals, but it also turns out to be the mission that they were going on before they had to actually deal with the whole Predacon thing, because they stole the first golden disc when they were actually in their own time. So this whole mission that they had when they were on this ship was to take this specific stasis pod and actually just dump it on some random barren planet that no one would actually go to because it was so incredibly dangerous. And they can never control it. It's bigger than them because it's actually based on the original Transformers. So it's like actually a really big one, because they're actually, there are no humans in this series, like, at all, of course. But I believe the Maximals and the Predacons are actually about the size of humans, or like maybe like 11 feet instead of like 50 feet, or crazy stuff like that, like the old Transformers. And they probably were only like 30 feet outside of like the giant ones like Metroplex, which is way more than 50 feet. But I think they're much closer to like human size than they are old school Transformer size. So this is like an in between area where this Maximal, who I believe they just call like Experiment X, or something like that, he was really big. Like, he was much bigger than the rest of them. And when they find the stasis pod, it's actually cracked open a little bit, and you see like these legs are already sticking out of it, and then they already look like arachnid, like egg. I'll just say eggs, but legs, or like spider eggs or something, legs or something like that. And so we have a couple of the Maximals get there. So we have Cheetor, Silverbolt, and Optimus Prime, or Optimus Primal. And then some of the Predacons get there as well. I feel like I said Predacons twice, but the Maximals and the Predacons get there. And for the Predacon side of things, we have, naturally, Black Arachne has to be thrown in there so she can have her own little thing going on. And then we actually have, I want to say it was Waspinator as well, and Tarantulas was there too. And it may have just been Black Arachne and Tarantulas, and I think he was kind of, once again, doing his own thing. But I think Black Arachne and Waspinator were actually sent to do this mission. And so they basically all kind of get there, and they have like this crazy little battle, and then there's this like crazy storm happens because there's an energon deposit in the area that gets messed up. So everyone kind of just gets like really beat up and just spread all apart. So Black Arachnia and Silverbolt actually end up in a really close area. And then we have Optimus and Cheetor, who kind of get separated as well. And there's such interference because of this crazy storm with the energon and everything that they can't get through. And then things get really weird because Tarantulas is actually by himself, and he has a scene, and there's like this big shadow that comes up behind him. And of course it turns out, which was the greatest fear of Rhinox and Optimus, the Experiment X Maximal is actually alive. So it wasn't dead like they thought it was, and it actually does end up coming to life. And it like rips Tarantulas apart. Like at first, they have Black Arachne and Silverbolt, like they end up teaming up because they're both kind of wounded, and it's like, alright, well, I guess we'll team up and we'll kind of survive. And so through this whole thing, as Megatron sends Black Arachne on this little mission, he has like this little disc that he throws on her back to basically keep an eye on her to see what she does. So he has, he's keeping an eye on her. He could have easily gone to save her. Like, the whole thing is like, oh, there's no way we can, get in touch with our respective teams, so we're kind of trapped here until we figure out what to do. And then they had the scene where, Black Arachne and Silverbolt are talking, and they find like one of Tarantulas' like arms just hanging like in a tree and stuff, and they thought it was like, oh, the storm like kind of knocked a part of him off or something, like maybe he hit something and a couple pieces came off. And then they show like Megatron is still talking, and I think he was talking with Waspinator, who made it back, and he's like, like, don't underestimate her. Like, she's probably she could easily just be using the Maximal as a means to an end. And I was so surprised. I was like, oh, he could have totally gone in and saved her and just like destroyed one of the Maximals if he wanted to do that. But he was kind of just waiting to see how everything played out with her character, and trying to see exactly what would happen, and really what she would do during this mission he sent her on. So they end up teaming up because, like I said, they're both wounded. Silverbolt can't fly, like his wings are messed up, and Black Arachne is just really wounded, like she can't fly anyway, so she was just really hurt. So they end up teaming up. Optimus and Cheetor can't really do anything. It's like we kind of just have to walk around and hope that they're able to make it. And so they end up coming across Silverbolt and Black Arachnia end up coming across basically the rest of Tarantulas. Like, he is torn apart across this field, and they realize there's no way that this was the storm, and they realize like this had to be that experiment that was inside the stasis pod. And so it's just a crazy battle after that, because this thing ends up coming out and both teams finally end up running into each other. So we have all four of them together, and they have to fight like this giant freaking thing. And it starts off simple because it's like, all right, he has the spider legs, I know he's going to turn into a spider, and that's what he does at first. And then so he has the spider form, he's fighting them off, and they're able to like knock him back when they all just shoot at him at the same time. They like knock him down even after he maximizes and goes into like his his big form. They're able to knock him off this cliff, and then he does something that I was not expecting to see at all, and he changes into his tank basically, and it like blew my mind because I was like, I didn't once again, I didn't remember that they had this character in general in the series. But not only is this like a crazy experimental character based off of the spark of specifically Starscream. I don't know if I mentioned that, which I thought was a weird thing. It was like, how would they have the spark of Starscream, who, with this actually taking place after G1 and being a part of that continuity, how in the world did they get his spark after he became a ghost? That didn't make any sense to me. But once again, some stuff you kind of just gotta be like, they had it, whatever. So not only is this guy actually like a blend between a Maximal and a Decepticon, with them trying to merge that DNA to make something new, but he's also a triple changer, which is what they called him in the original series, where they could have like their regular robot mode, and then like Astro Train or Astrojet, I always forget what his name is. I want to say it's Astro Train. But he had his regular mode, and then he had his train mode, and then he could transform again into a jet, and he could actually like fly through space. Like, he's the character that they use in the movie to actually escape from Earth to Cybertron. And I was really blown away by that. I was like, wow, he's a triple changer. And he like lands on his back after they knock him off the cliff, and he transforms into like this tank thing, and he gets like treads and everything. And it made me think of Megatron, because that's like the big thing that they do in like modern Transformer stuff. Megatron is often the tank, because they can't just do like the giant Luger again. They could, but nobody does it, unfortunately. But him turning into the tank, I was like, holy crap, that's actually really sweet. And he was basically going up the side of this cliff in tank form, and he had like 3 rockets on the front of him. And I was like, holy crap, he's a triple changer, and he's huge. He's a giant. He's about as big as an actual tank, bigger even. So he got really crazy. Like, he changes, and then now he's got missiles shooting off the front, but they're fortunately still able to defeat him. And excuse me, as the episode continues, Megatron's plan actually starts to play out like piece by piece. His plan is kind of played out where we get like very short scenes with him, and we kind of find out why he didn't decide to just go in full force and save Black Arachne and just get rid of Silverbolt, which would have helped, lessen the Maximal forces. His plan was actually to take Experiment X for himself, and there's a scene basically in the middle of the episode where he has the computer system make him an energon blade, like a really sharp little blade. And after they defeat Experiment X, the Maximals all go their way, and then Black Arachnia takes off and she goes her own way. Megatron ends up at the bottom of this cliff, and the Experiment X, it kind of sees him. They do like sort of the dazed look where he's like really messed up and he kind of passes out. And we just see Megatron going towards him with his blade, and then it cuts to the next scene where this Experiment X wakes up, and they bring him out of like the regeneration pods that they have, and they have probably one of my favorite scenes that they've ever had with Megatron in the whole series, which is this crazy experiment which just like loses its freaking mind all the time. That was like the whole big thing about it, is now under the control of Megatron, because with this blade he actually cut this spark out of, you know, this transformer, and he put it into like basically this energon vice grip where it's just energon crystals over the spike, and it's got like springs on it so he can squeeze it, and it's basically like he has the spirit of this transformer in his hand, and he's like, you know, I know you like to go crazy and, you know, do everything you want. And if I remember right, he gives him the name Carnage. It's either Carnage or Barrage, and I want to say it's Barrage because I think I'd remember Carnage because of Spider-Man, but I could be wrong. And I'm going to try to see if I can find the name in the random list here somewhere. But it was really cool. I was like, that's actually such a badass scene to me. And he just has this spark. I don't know how that works, but basically the only explanation they give is that anyone else would have died, but because he was such a powerful experiment, he survived having his spark taken out of him and, you know, placed into like this basically little energon crystal prison. But it just looked really cool. I was like, that's such a cool device, and it's like, you know, now I have a new Predacon on my team that is a triple changer and ginormous. Like, it's a giant freaking thing, and it's just gonna go nuts, and it's gonna be under my control because I have its basically its soul trapped inside of this energon little prism cube thing, and it just looked really cool. I was like, that's such a cool moment, and he just like squeezes this thing, and he's like, I want you to realize like that pain is basically from your new master. It's like, I have control of you now. So it was such a cool ending, where it's like, man, that was his plan the whole time, especially once he figured out what, you know, this experiment was. And now he has this new, you know, I thought Inferno was crazy, but he has like an even bigger version, because Inferno is probably the second biggest. I think Megatron was the biggest, so now Megatron is the second biggest, Inferno is the third, and then we have I guess Barrage or Carnage. I really do want to go with Barrage, but he's now the tallest that he has, and it's like, man, they have such dominating personalities on the Predacon side, and, you know, we have the Maximal side, and it's just like, man, it's just, it seems like they should be instantly overpowered just based on stature, but that, you know, obviously they have guns and everything and different skill sets, but like they just keep making the Predacons just like crazier and crazier, where you get Inferno first and he's this giant freaking ant, and then his regular mode is huge, and now we have Barrage, and he's ginormous because he's, you know, like I said, a blend of Maximals and then the old actual Decepticons, so he's, you know, much bigger than everyone else. So I'm really excited to see what they do with this character, and, you know, I don't know how this stuff is going to play out. I can only assume that there's going to be an episode, maybe not until like season 3 or maybe closer to the end of this season, but I have to assume there's going to be some episode where he might end up dying because he's going to try to get his spark back, and it might work for an episode or two, and it could just be pure chaos on all sides, and they all have to like take him down or something crazy. But I'm like, this character is too big to be under Megatron's control forever, so I know it's going to happen somewhere down the line where maybe even Tarantulas, where it's like, you know what, I'm going to free him and let him just go crazy inside the Predacon base so I can do whatever it is I want to do, and he'll team up, you know, with Barrage and be like, hey, I'll free you, you go nuts, and then I'll do this, and we kind of go our separate ways. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with this character, but it was a really cool ending. Like I said, it was just a really great moment with Megatron. It's like, this thing could destroy him in a split second, honestly. This thing is so huge, it could take out a ton of characters at once. Like, Thor had to fight it just to knock it off a cliff, and if it weren't for the fact that he fell down that cliff, he probably wouldn't have been nearly as wounded, and easily could have fought them back, especially because they were all wounded anyway from the crazy storm. So he easily could have taken them down, and even if they were at full power, that would have been quite a challenge for them, as tall as he was and all the powers that he had, and, you know, the triple changing and stuff in the different modes. But loved the new character, and I'm just excited to see how this plays out in the next episode, because this is the last one that I've seen, so I haven't, you know, gone ahead for this one. But Really enjoyed it, of course. If you guys have any comments about the episode or anything Transformers, of course, just put your comments down in the comment section below. And thanks for watching.